Hello everyone, and welcome to the Territorialio 1.99.5.5 update. Today we're going to talk about 4 changes that have been made, then I'm going to discuss my thoughts on the changes, then give this update an overall rating based on kind of how this fits in with the changes. So to begin, many of you might have already seen Asazi's video on the Osmanli opening being no longer viable. So there's some nuances with that. What appears to have happened, even though we don't have definitive information from the 1.99.5.5 changelog, is that it appears that to send now, there's a minimum cost if you have the troops. So for those of you who've been using the exploit cheat or updated Osmanli V2 or V3, which is essentially you're sending out like 55 or 100% and then doing 0% sends, the 0% sends, from what I've seen, it doesn't appear to be viable. That said, we don't have all this information. If you know something else or you've actually done some of the testing on like consistent pocket size in say multiplayer or single player, definitely let me know what you think in the comments. But so you know, the V1 version is still viable. I won some games. I did a bunch of testing and looking on how my opening compared to other individuals. And there's various reasons why it's working, but essentially, for me, what I can tell you is if I'm in like a 20-player game, which isn't that often, I have a big pocket and a lot of space, I'm probably just going to spam 100% because I think it's still viable. I'm not sure if there's been a limit put in, but it's still viable, especially because of the changes to bots, which is essentially buying more time and slowing down micro. So this is all to say that Osmanli has changed a bit. There's still some ways you could spam. I could even say my one game I tried the V2 version, something similar to Asazi's thing. Against okay players, I had like an okay outcome. I don't think it's viable though at a higher level. So moving on to the next change point, we got to talk about the bots. The bots are probably the most impactful thing. So you know, the creator has reworked some of the code for bots. It appears there's better targeting. And overall, the type of impact is bots seem to have more troops. I'm not sure if they're doing later cycle sends, but what you're gonna find is that how you used to do openings is a lot slower now, that you might have to be more methodical. I'm still thinking about how this works. A lot of 1v1 players have critiqued that this is adding more RNG, so random number generation, just randomness to the game, that if you get around bots with bad timing and they're just stacked with troops, that can cost you the game, and I think that type of dynamic can also show in multiplayer. But the main point about this change is you're going to have to think about being a little bit more methodical, potentially more patient. There might even be considerations with multiplayers with metas that you might want to expand a little bit sooner. Then again, I'm not the opening dude, so take this all with a grain of salt. Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. Another thing that was not mentioned in Asazi's video, but I think is really important, is talking about the boats. So boats have gone through a bunch of different iterations in these type of strings of updates. And from my sense, even though we have no changelog updates, they've been slowed down a lot since the original 1.98.5 update that implemented this like bullshit cheat and stuff. They're slower now. I think they've been made slightly more visible, not because of the glowing, but in terms of the send levels. But there also seems, just from my feel, because boats are a big part of my gameplay, that there's less difference based on the send levels. For example, in the past, if you send out a 5 million boat versus a 1,000 boat, you will notice very, very quickly how different the send levels are. Clearly, we all know about the different animations, but boats are slowed down. Boat defense still makes a lot of sense. Pretty good on that front. And the last thing that we should talk about, Asazi already mentioned it, his video is great, definitely check it out. It was a good laugh, I loved it, is that peace conditions have changed. So we know all this nonsense about calling for peace vote that people don't know about, but one thing that has changed is that for team games, clan points are now awarded at 90%. And I'm not sure all of what's going on here because there are still, I don't know if I want to call it bugs, but you can get 99 to 100% of the map and peace does not show up. So I wonder if this type of implementation has to do with trying to get people to essentially get points and not be stuck in games while potentially David is trying to figure this out. I don't really know. So those are the main changes with this update. So let's go into a few thoughts. So first, I think it's great that Osmanli's been nerfed. I'm not sure all of how much it's been nerfed. I took some notes looking over Asazi's video at basically what is the type of minimum amount of troops you have to send. I don't know. I think most people think that that is a game-breaking change. You really should not be able to send like 0%. And Territorial in many ways is a game about balancing troops. It's strategic versus territory, and just being able to send 100% or 0% and get all this edge seems crazy. I think the days of Wire's #1 run of basically using the Osmanli to get an edge on everyone and taking down Corgi on stream and you name it, I don't think that's going to continue with V2. Definitely need to do some more testing, but we'll see what happens with that. It's great that it's been nerfed. It's still somewhat in the game. I don't know what to think about this take one row thing, because this also ties into the whole dynamic of bot creep and basically player spam, that people can just go click on you as fast as you can. My first game playing this, I think it was EU Jesse, just got wrecked by someone because they're just spamming, and that does not seem consistent with how Territorialio is. David, the creator, has talked a lot about, or a little bit in Discord, about making the little guy have a chance. But I don't think this is really consistent with overall logic, but we'll get to that, some more of those thoughts with the last point. In terms of bots, my main question, why? Like, why did this need a rework? I'm not really sure. I'm still figuring out the meta, and I think the RNG critiques from 1v1 players, I think that's good, and I think some of that applies potentially to multiplayer too, that there's been a long time for me, I can just clean up bots really quick and get a huge edge. But if I get the RNG that I'm next to a bunch of really big bots, it feels like that, like I know we're all in the same boat, but I kind of wonder, I know I still need to figure out the meta, if I can still have that advantage, or am I just kind of doomed and everyone's going to have to push through 1k bots and that basically is kind of leveling the playing field? I don't know if that's part of the theme of these updates, of trying to make the game more accessible to other players, but it is a big why. Like, why do we need these different bots? In terms of boat changes, I was very, very negative when this started. If you've seen some of my other videos, I harp on the boats. There's been a bunch of games that I've had issues with defending with them. I just don't get it. It's the same comment. Why? Why did we need a rework on this, on what's going on? Like, specifically with the mechanics. Like, I don't know all of what to say about speed. Clearly, the decreased text size for send levels is problematic. I think it's workable and the game is more playable now than when 1.98.5 came out. But it still feels kind of troll and kind of clunky, and I don't totally understand it. Specifically kind of paired with the whole dynamic of glowing boats, because with bots being smarter and they seem to send more boats and them glowing, it just kind of makes boat defense a nightmare. Like, I've played some games on World where I have this type of area in India and I have this big exposed flank, and there's just so many things going on. I get all these red alerts in the bottom right about boats coming. I see all these glowing things from basically bots that I can't really tell what's going on. And that the APM required to zoom in and see what the send level on every boat is and figure out what is kind of chaotic and a nightmare. Like, in the past, seeing an attack signal in the bottom right corner of your screen is actually really, really useful. But now it just feels like there's all this mess, and that's paired with bot creep and stuff, that it all doesn't seem to be adding up. It's very much the kind of point is why are we doing this? And I think a good comment on that is actually Ui from Wire in the forum, that he made a point that basically talking about responding to someone talking about having custom lobbies, that all these weird esoteric changes are just affecting people's will to continue playing, that clearly David has editorial authority with what he wants to do, but he doesn't communicate. These changes don't seem to make sense. And also, if anyone wants to cite that there's increased playtime in the game, I bet you that is from people being trapped in the game because they get to 99% and don't know what to do, and they're typically used to winning. And like I've been saying, there's no changelog updates. So overall, I'd give this update a C or a D. I think it's great. Osmanli has been nerfed. That really shouldn't be in the game. But it's also like the analogy I've thought, and I don't think it's that apt, is I feel like David started a forest fire. Now it's like, oh, some of that doesn't make sense. Let me try to change that. And he's putting on these band-aids of like, now you get points at 90%, even though people have been trapped in games and like they don't know what's going on. I think the whole boat dynamic and just like how the maps work. Like when I first saw glowing boats, I thought those are kind of pretty. But in practice in games, it's really distracting when bots send all these boats. The bot creep, the spam, all this stuff is like not to harp. It just is worrying about what the hell is going on. That David, for his part, whenever he responds to comments in Discord, he seems really nice and with it. Like I saw him talking about code in the forum. But on the flip side, it doesn't seem to make sense why all these changes are being implemented that are bugging a lot of people, even though I think the game is a lot more workable now than just like probably a couple days ago, in my opinion. But it just brings up the question, like, what the fuck is he doing? Not that anyone needs more of that. So anyways, thanks for watching, everyone. If you have any comments or you know anything else, I haven't had enough time to do like the super in-depth testing. So please let me know if there's something I missed or there's something else you want to see related to this update. Then again, it's a moving target. We'll see how things go. There'll probably be some crazy change in a day or two that fucks everything up. So thanks for watching, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.